Imagine you are locked in a glass box and slowly sinking to the bottom of the ocean. You might think that what awaits you below are just small fish, or at worst, some bizarre creatures like anglerfish. But the reality is completely different. The deeper you go, the more inexplicably enormous everything becomes. Sharks larger than great white sharks, squids as heavy as a car, and even the seemingly smallest creatures turn into hauntingly exaggerated versions. So what is happening at the bottom of the ocean, where there is almost no light and food? And why does everything there become so absurdly large? The concept of gigantism in the deep sea. This phenomenon is known as deep sea gigantism, a strange rule that humans rarely witness because it only exists in the deepest layers of the ocean. Surprisingly, in an environment with almost no light and extremely scarce food, where creatures should shrink to conserve energy, the ocean does the opposite. Everything down there tends to get bigger, not just a little bigger, but transformed into giant versions of themselves. From tiny creatures to species that are already large, all are drawn into a strange rule that magnifies their size to extreme levels. So what in the deep sea environment has forced creatures to evolve in this direction? Big fin squid, living trap creatures. To understand better, let's look at one of the most terrifying examples of this phenomenon, the big fin squid. This squid has unusually large fins compared to its body, extending out, making its body look wider than it is tall, something almost never seen in other squid species. But the most notable part is not the body, but its tentacles. If you look closely, you will see that these tentacles have 90-degree angled segments that look like bent arms, but in reality they are their fixed structure. Compared to squid living in shallow waters, something has clearly caused them to transform completely. At a depth of about 15,000 feet, chasing prey is almost impossible because every movement consumes precious energy. Instead of hunting, the big fin squid evolved into a living trap, floating in the water and dropping its tentacles, up to 6 meters long, like a giant net. It hardly needs to do anything and can still cover a large area to catch prey. Although it looks scary, most of its body is just slender tentacles and not strong enough to pose a danger to humans. But what is worrying is that most of the individuals we have recorded are juveniles. If the juveniles are already that long, how big are the adults? Oarfish, giant body like an antenna. But not all creatures use size to trap, like the big fin squid. The oarfish is a completely different example. This is the longest bony fish in the ocean, reaching over 11 meters in length, longer than 3 cars lined up. For centuries, sailors who saw it thought it was a sea monster. With its long, slender body and a red dorsal fin running along its body like a mane, it really looks like a giant sea serpent. But what is special is that they do not use their bodies to hunt directly. Instead, they use their enormous length as a biological antenna. Oarfish can stand upright vertically in the water, allowing it to sense changes in pressure or chemical signals from prey at different water levels without moving. In an environment where food falls from above, this vertical scanning ability provides a huge advantage. Reason for lack of competition: no need to be fast. If being giant brings so many benefits, why don't creatures in shallow waters evolve in a similar direction? The answer lies in competition. In coral reefs or waters near the surface, there are always faster and more aggressive predators. If you are a 10-meter-long creature but move slowly, you will become an easy meal. Therefore, species here are forced to be compact to hide or agile to escape. But in the deep sea, the environment is almost empty. There are not many predators, and the competitive pressure is almost zero. Once you reach a certain size, you become too big to be hunted, and from there is no reason to be fast anymore. This allows creatures to focus all their energy on optimizing their life performance instead of speed. Large body equals energy saving. One of the biggest secrets of gigantism is that a large body actually helps save energy. It sounds paradoxical, but the larger the creature, the lower the energy consumption per unit of mass. Small fish have high metabolic rates and can starve to death in just a few days if they don't eat. In contrast, giant creatures act like biological batteries, capable of storing huge amounts of nutrients and using them gradually over time. Their hearts beat slower, their muscles move less, and they can survive for months without eating. In a food-scarce environment, this is a vital advantage. Giant squid, giant predator. However, not all giant creatures are gentle. The giant squid is a prime example of the dark side of gigantism. They can be over 13 meters long and weigh hundreds of kilograms. Unlike oarfish or bigfin, giant squid are true predators. They possess the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, enough to detect the faintest light in absolute darkness. Their two hunting tentacles act like biological grappling hooks, equipped with serrated suckers to hold prey tightly. Once caught, they pull the prey towards their mouth and crush it with a beak harder than bone. The reason they become so large is not only to hunt, but also to confront their biggest enemy, the sperm whale. The evolutionary race between these two species has lasted for millions of years, forcing the squid to become increasingly large and strong to survive. Deep sea pressure, not a problem. Many people think that the enormous pressure at the bottom of the sea would crush large creatures, but that is not the case. Their bodies are mainly composed of water and oil, substances that are almost incompressible. The pressure inside the body balances with the pressure outside, making them unaffected. In fact, the underwater environment helps eliminate gravity, allowing creatures to grow to large sizes without needing a heavy skeleton for support. This is why giant, soft-bodied creatures are common in the deep sea. Isopod and giant crustaceans. Not only soft creatures, but some hard-shelled species also develop large sizes, such as the giant isopod. If you have ever seen a pill bug in the garden, the isopod is its distant relative. But instead of being tiny, they can weigh up to nearly 2 kilograms, tens of thousands of times larger than their terrestrial relatives. The reason is that they need to become a living food storage. When a whale carcass falls to the bottom of the sea, they must eat a lot to store up for the following years. In fact, some individuals can live up to 5 years without eating again. Time factor. Living long equals being large. One less mentioned factor is time. In cold and harsh environments, the metabolic rate drops to almost zero, causing creatures to age very slowly. This allows them to live for decades, even hundreds of years, and continue to grow in size throughout that life. Giant size is not the result of a single mutation, but a consequence of not dying for a very long time. Greenland shark, the apex of slowness. The Greenland shark is the clearest example of this. They can be over 7 meters long and live up to 400 years. Their growth rate is extremely slow, only about 1.5 centimeters per year. That means that to reach adult size, they must live through many centuries. In fact, they only start reproducing when they are about 150 years old. This is one of the longest living creatures ever recorded. Not everything is giant. However, not all creatures in the deep sea are giant. Most are still very small. Gigantism is only suitable for certain living strategies such as storing energy or ambushing prey. Other species choose to live small, to grow quickly, and reproduce early. Some anglerfish even have males so small that they cannot feed themselves, existing only to find and attach to the female. Summary of the mechanism of giantism. When combining all the factors, gigantism is not a random phenomenon, but an inevitable result of the deep sea environment. Buoyancy helps reduce the burden on the body, low temperatures slow down metabolism, and the absence of predators eliminates the pressure to be agile. All create an ideal environment for creatures to develop enormous sizes. Finally, these giant creatures are not monsters, but simply perfect products of an extreme habitat. And fortunately for us, they will never leave their world to enter ours. If you found this video interesting, please subscribe to the channel and like the video so you don't miss the next exciting content.